Puduvai 107.8 MHz, a community radio station of Pondicherry University. And this program, a special group discussion on the occasion of World Tourism Day 2013.
Hello listeners, this is Pondicherry University's community radio station 107.8 MHz. Water is the new gold. I think that explains the significance of water as much. In fact, our very civilization has developed around water surplus areas like the Great Plains. But what is the scenario now in the country of Ganges? Companies are retreating due to lack of fresh water, adding to the woes of Indian economy. The water access, even in an urbanized environment like Bangalore and Bhopal, is just twice a week. Water scarcity has become so intense that we are obliged to answer the question, do we really conserve the water that is actually available? How is our societal thoughts on this perspective and how we can promote such social deeds? This year being declared as the International Year of Water Cooperation, it is the right time to throw some light on these perspectives. And to enlighten you on this subject, we have the members of Department of Tourism Studies to discuss on this subject. Firstly, let me introduce you. I'm Tarini talking to you right now, and we have Dr. Jitendra Mohan Mishra, Assistant Professor of the Department of Tourism Studies. We have Mrs. Sibi George, again an Assistant Professor from our department, and we also have some students from the DTS fraternity, Jyotish Sebastian, Mintu Mondal, Venkat Subramaniam and Jarya. So we'll just listen to some of the general perceptions on the water conservation. Let me invite Mishra sir to talk about the water conservation in India, how significant it is and the reasons for the water scarcity. Sir, please.
Thank you, Tarini. I am Dr. Jitendra Mohan Mishra, an Assistant Professor in Department of Tourism Studies, and we are gathered here for discussing about the importance of water in our life. We would not be carried away by the notion that wherever we see there is water, and we would not be concerned over it. Let us, for example, people say that we have 71% of the total world's surface being covered by water. So water is abundantly available for us. But from that 71%, it is only 0.3% that is drinkable, that is potable, and that water is useful for the human being. So that talks the volume of importance of water in our life. About that 0.3% also, it is very rare and scarcely available for consumption by the human being. And we need to understand the importance of water in our life. We would not waste water without any purpose, without proper usage of it. And we would mean that water, what is available to us, is sustainable. We use it judiciously, and we would care for it in our daily life. Only then we can use water sustainably, and we can conserve it for future generations to enjoy it.
Thank you very much, sir. Now let me invite Sibi ma'am to share a few words on the subject.
Thank you, Tarini. I am Sibi George, Assistant Professor, Department of Tourism Studies. I am so thankful. I'm happy to be part of this discussion of discussing the importance of water and the role of conserving water. And in the day-to-day life, we cannot even think of a day without water. It is the responsibility of each and every one to conserve water, and this is the right time to think about the conservation of water and the different sources of water pollution and how to minimize the water pollution. We cannot even think of a day without water. So that important is water for each human being.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for giving us the significance of water. Now let us hear from Jyotish Sebastian on the subject.
Thank you, Tarini. I am here to talk about the traditional practices that are being followed in the country to conserve water. Traditionally, Indian architecture, Indian canal system, Indian town planning, everything was based upon water and how water should be used judicially. We all know how important water is. It's like human body has 70% of water in it, and human life sustains on water. And you know the necessity of water in day-to-day life, you know the necessity of water in the environmental cycle. All these things, drives one particular point was that the importance of water is something that nobody can ignore. It's very important, to conserve water and, give it, for the future generations. A generation without water is a generation without life. So, water is life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jyotish. I appreciate the way you had associated the human life with water. And now let us hear from Mr. Venkat Subramaniam. Venkat, what are the general conceptions of water conservation as you think? Can you please share it with us?
Hi, this is Venkat Subramanian. If you take basically India is an agricultural economy. Much of water consumption is used for agricultural purpose. Next come for the industrial sector. So therefore the major chunk of Indian water resources is basically for these two segments, agriculture and industrial sector. If we can use our water legitimately, judiciously for these purposes, I think water can be conserved much better.
Thank you very much, Venkat. So you have given us two ideas about agricultural usage and the industrial usage. Thank you so much. And now can we hear from Mr. Mintu Mondal? Mintu, can you please share your general views on this subject?
Hello, I'm Mintu. I'm going to quote some examples. The greatest civilizations on earth flourished on the banks of rivers. So is the current human civilization. And one fact we all humans forget, that the amount of water is still the same when it was during the formation of the earth. So we all should spend water very wisely because it's not getting renewed.
Thank you very much. So you have actually mentioned about the civilization. That's a very good point. Thank you so much, Mintu, for that. And now let us hear from Jarya about her general ideas on the water conservation and water cooperation. Jarya, please.
Hi, I'm Jarya. Where there is water, there is life, is a saying. Life exists around numerous uses of water, which makes it important for survival and luxury. It is a part of a biosphere that should be conserved and not to be overused, ignored, or just taken for granted. Because of this, water should be conserved to sustain our domestic needs for the future use.
Thank you, Jarya, for giving us that wonderful sustainability point. Thank you so much. And now I would just like to mention about certain aspects of the water conservation. Generally speaking, we have lots of dams and multi-purpose projects existing in our country. And we have certain traditional methods of water conservation. And we have the industries that are based on the water availability, for their business. So there are so many aspects that we have to focus on water conservation. And now I just have a few questions to pose to each of the speaker here. And this would be regarding the water conservation. Firstly, Mishra sir, being associated with geography so much, I would like to give him a wonderful question. Sir, can you please give us the advantages and the disadvantages of the dams and the multi-purpose projects? Are they being used properly in our country? How useful are they for the agricultural purposes or any purposes? So can you please enlighten us on that, sir?
A very good question. In fact, heavy water projects which are created in our country serves multi-purposes, from agriculture to production of electricity to vegetations and forestry programs. It has got numerous avenues. But in recent times, there has been a lot of debate whether these big water projects are ideal for the economy that the kind of which we are living in, or we would go for small water projects which would just serve the purpose of irrigation in the country, and for electricity we would go to some alternative source of production. That has been a debate which is going around in our recent society. Well, we have heard 2-3 big mega water projects which have been opposed by the locals because of so many negative effects it has created around the place where such water projects are created. Let us take an example of this Tehri Hydro Development Corporation, which is existed in Tehri district of Uttarakhand. When it was created, almost several villages and thousands and lakhs of people were displaced from the dam site to the further catchment areas. That had created so many economic problems, and the amount of water the planners initially thought of would get stored in a kind of duration that the planners did not achieve. And what happened, in fact, when the water got stored over the years, there were some leakages, and where exactly that water was going, no one had any clue. And the amount of electricity also that power project was understood to have supplied to the society, that also it has failed. And we also hear the case of Narmada Valley and the related water projects. We have cases where states have been fighting over the waters of various rivers. Now probably, and planners support this view that instead of having a huge water projects, why can't we have smaller water projects? So that would serve exactly the purpose of irrigation, and rivers would serve the purpose of developing agriculture in its catchment areas. In fact, having electricity from these river projects, it is always better to go for other mode of electricity productions like nuclear power plant. I want to mention here about this nuclear power plant is as this sort of production of electricity is considered to be best environment friendly way of having electricity in our society. So I would not support with all my details, with all my studies that I have undertaken, these heavy water projects, dams are not ideal for our environment and for our economy. So I would have this opinion of mine.
Thank you very much, sir, for that enlightenment. But I just have a small doubt on this aspect. You were telling that the big projects do not serve the purpose of their creation as such. But aren't the dams used to save the water? Because our country has facing irregular rains. We don't have regular monsoons that really doesn't serve the agriculture. That way, dams are the only way that would support the irrigation and the agriculture in our country. So do you think dams are really that deconstructive?
This feeling of scientist is outdated now. When you store the water, it is used in one particular area. It doesn't irrigate it to its catchment and lower catchment areas. So when a river flows its natural way, it gives benefit to thousands and lakhs of people who are living on the banks of that river across. So a river, even our international river understanding, that policy also says that a river has to flow its natural way. And we also had plans in India that all the rivers in India would be interlinked through canals. So that is a better way of giving benefits to the local people through this irrigation. But heavy water projects are detrimental to the environment, and it has been proved once again.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I think that was very informative, in fact. Now, I just have another question, and this is about the industrial waste polluting the water. And as such, to give a very precise statistics, To give a very precise statistics, India actually hosts 16% of the world's population, but we only have 4% of the world's fresh water. That way, the minimal fresh water that we have should be conserved very much. But then what is happening here is the manufacturing industry is polluting that 4% water. So that is actually being a very deconstructive to not just our environment but also to our economy. So I would like to pose this question to Sibi ma'am. Ma'am, can you please tell us about how the industrial waste is polluting the water and how it affects the villages? Can you please enlarge on this subject?
As everyone knows, industry is a huge source of water pollution. It produces pollutants that are extremely harmful to people and the environment. The marine dumping of sewage and other water waste of industries containing intoxicant compounds which are disposed to water contaminate the water bodies like rivers, lake and ocean, which are the main source of water. And these may not immediately affect the human life, but immediately affect the marine life and subsequently to the human life. Even tourism industry has a great role in polluting water bodies. Like for example, the waste from hoteliers, actually organic and inorganic waste are deposited into water. And boating facilities, especially these houseboats, they don't have proper waste management system, and they also just dump the waste into water bodies. So along with this, tourist activities in beaches, lakes or islands pollute water, and even in many of the tourist destinations, visual pollutions are created by bottles and plastic or other cans deposited in the lakes. So if you want to keep your water clean, and if you want to keep your water bodies clean, prevent all types of water pollutions. Facilities to treat solid water and wastewater is not adequate in India. Only a small percentage of water is treated properly, and the rest is discharged to water. This ultimately ends up in our own households as highly contaminated, and which carry microbes to our own homes. So need for the hour is sustainable water management and good practice or good treatment practices to reduce the pollution. And this tourism industries, especially this accommodation sectors, they have to do many roles in minimizing waters and recycling and reusages of waste used by them. So disposal, which is unavoidable, should be in a non-harmful way. This is my opinion about industry waste and how to reduce or minimize the impact to water.
Thank you very much, Sibi ma'am, for having cited the industrial pollution on the water, that is the minimal water available in our country. But at the same time, the same companies which has its manufacturing sector, which has polluted the water, is also responsible for having let our economy fall down by retreating from our company, right away. So on that perspective, since Venkat has already mentioned about the water usage by the industrial sector and the agricultural sector, I would like to pose this question to him. Venkat, can you please tell us about how the water scarcity is affecting the Indian commerce industry?
Yes, Tharni. Last year, a survey was conducted by FICCI, Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. It says they took a survey around 27 industrial sector, such as textile, pharma, food processing sector, etc. It says 87% of companies would face water crisis in the next decade. So that would be very difficult for the industries. So that the industries in India would wind up and go back to the origin countries. And also 60% of the industries are already facing water shortage issues. So in this case, the industries should be coming up with the techniques to use water in such a way that the water shortages are met, and more than that, there are water available for the rest of the people in that area.
Thank you, Venkat, for your statistical inputs. Now, this is a question about the domestical usage of water and how are we actually using water at homes. Is it proper, or how are we some of the tips that we need to use water properly at the domestic level? And for this, I would like Jarya to share a few words on this.
In respect to your question, I would like to share some thoughts about the domestic usage of water and its conservation. In a typical home, approximately 50% of water is being used in a bathroom, and 33% of water is used in kitchen, and rest for other purposes. Well, by implying some basic ideas and rules, each household can save and conserve water, which are pretty simple to follow. Checking for leaks in taps and pipes is an easy way to reduce water wastage, and one leaking tap can waste more than 2,000 liters of water in a month. And by installing water-efficient taps or tap aerators is a great and inexpensive way to cut water usage. And by using 3-star rated shower heads, it reduces water usage of 10 liters per minute. And in kitchen, we can reduce the usage of water by cooking vegetables in microwave, steaming, and in pressure cooker. And by putting the plug in the sink.
Thank you so much for these tips, Jarya. I think people who are listening to our FM right now would find it really helpful, and I'm sure they would also install these ideas into their domestic purposes. And now, as a hostelite, I'm really interested to know about the water that's being used in the hostel. Mintu, as a person who has been stayed Chennai hostel and in Pondicherry University, I'm sure you know the differences of how water significance has been seen by the people in the either places. So can you please answer these questions? Can you please tell us how water is being used in a hostel? Is it effective, or are they conserving water in a proper way? Can you please share your insights?
Well, students understand students' feelings. I've been staying in hostel for the past 5 years and have seen a lot how a hostelite spends water each day in his or her life. So I noticed some basic things with the help of which you can actually conserve water in hostels. For the start, we students are always in a hurry to reach to the class, but we should not switch on the tap and brush our teeth and shave, because it leads to a loss of 15 liters of water each hour. At the time of shower, we should reduce the shower time by 5 minutes. It saves 450 liters of water in a month. We should go for only 1 or 2 showers in a day. That is more than enough for a student. When doing laundry, we should use minimum level of water. For each wash, 2 to 3 buckets of water is enough, and we should do laundry only twice or thrice in a week. The toilets in hostels are always dripping, and it leads to a lot of water wastage. The flush in the toilet should be checked, and the pipes which leaks water constantly. And to save water, the most basic thing, we can reduce the availability of 24/7 water supply in our hostels to a limited period of time. So in that way we can save water, and during the time when the water won't be available in the hostel, we can actually keep water in huge drums from where everyone can use water. So these are some of the basic tips which every hostelite should follow to save and preserve the use of water.
Thank you so much, and I hope that our students take these advices from you and carry this on forward in our hostels so that we can conserve water from our end. Thank you very much, Mintu, for your inputs. And now, there are some traditional methods of water conservation in our country. Our culture has some water conservation techniques being intertwined in it, and that's being followed till today. And to share these ideas or these water conservation methods, I'd like to invite Jyotish Sebastian, someone who is from the God's own country. Jyotish, please.
Well, thank you, Tarini, for highlighting the fact that I'm from the God's own country. And I'm proud to say that, I'm from the God's own country, because still you can see a lot of water conservation practices happening in Kerala in a traditional manner. Well, to start with, Indian culture has a history of being, allotted to places where water, thrive. They thrive upon the existence of water. Starting from Indus Valley civilization to the Ganges civilization, and down south, Kaveri civilizations, and the Nila River civilization, Bharatapuzha civilization in Kerala. All these civilizations thrived upon the existence of water. And we can be proud that the most civilized culture in the world started off with the Indian culture, because we were civilized in such a way that our techniques and policies in governance, in town planning, in agriculture, in architecture, everything was far more superior, and it was scientifically proven that these policies are very well sustainable. For example, the constructions of Indian houses or Indian traditional houses, they were in such a way that roofs were constructed in such a way that water comes and flows into one central portion of the house, where water can be stored in case of for use of daily household purposes. They can use it for washing, cooking, everything. Because being rainwater, they can use it in such a way that it's pure. They can be sure of the existence of water. For everything, river was not taken as a source. And town planning, for example, like houses were allocated in square shapes. The streets were in squares so that drainage system was properly meant and managed, and there was a rationing of water. Like one village had one pond or a big well in such a way that everybody's needs are met. So traditional practices in the prehistoric times and the present times still help in maintaining water availability to all. For example, like in Kerala, there is an initiative taken by the Manorama newspaper, the daily newspaper. They have, as an organization, started, along with the Kerala state government, started promoting rainwater harvesting in households. Like subsidies are given by the government to people, so that they can start, set up tanks, rainwater harvesting tanks in their house. Even though Kerala has never met that scarcity of water like the other states, this is taken up by people in Kerala because they don't have to rely upon their own motherly sources of water like river or lake or everything. So main sources like household purposes they take from the rainwater. That way they are reducing the usage of river water. And these are some things that have been still followed in Kerala. And as you highlighted, God's own country follows some policies to promote sustainable use of water like rainwater harvesting. And the other thing is that groundwater is not highly utilized in Kerala because bore wells are to get a permission to drill a bore well in Kerala, you need to go through a lot of administrative and a lot of hassles you have to go through. This is purposefully done so that the groundwater is not depleted. And one thing you can see is that there's no house in Kerala, particularly rural areas or semi-rural areas. Such areas, there's no house you can find without a well, which is something you can be proud of because groundwater or spring water is the most purest form of water known to human being. So all these practices, they highlight the fact that the traditional systems, they last for a long time. They give a lasting source of water. That is something to start off. Being a tourism student, I should also highlight the importance that traditional practices are the only way by which we can meet the additional need for water. Apart from our needs, our public needs, additional need of water is brought up by tourism. So if you want to meet that demand, traditional practices is only sustainable.
Thank you very much, Jyotish. You have been very provocative when it comes to the traditional methods of conservation. It was wonderful. And here I would also like to mention about other traditional methods like the bamboo irrigation system that is being followed in the state of Meghalaya. And even in Tamil Nadu, the architecture was constructed in such a way that we have something called as Muttram or the Valavu, which is the facade of the house. It's like the hallway where you have a place where you can store water, and that is being used for the domestic purposes. And we also have something called as an Urani. Urani is like a small pond that is found in almost all the villages. So these are some of the practices, and thank you so much for highlighting on those. And now I would just like to throw questions to all of you about certain general aspects of water conservation. Now, firstly, let me ask a question on the government policies and frameworks on how well they are being implemented in our country to conserve the minimum water available. Mishra sir, can you please have your insights?
Well, before answering to your question, I would take the leads from what Mr. Mintu and what Jyotish has just explained. I beg to differ from them. One, which Mr. Mandal has said that we can have restrictions on the usage of waters. At least, yes, that would be an obvious outcome when the water would scarce, or when the water would become scarce. But before to that, do we have that awareness level in the hostels or in our daily life to conserve the water? If awareness is optimum, probably most of the problems related to water scarcity or water sustainability or water conservation would be solved. Do you say that your hostel mates or you yourself in the hostels are very judicious? You are very particular about the usage of water? Do you not waste the water in your daily life? That is a question all of us, not only Mintu Mandal the person, but all of us have to ask ourselves to get an answer to it. Again, what Mr. Jyotish has said, that this traditional method of conservation of water, I further beg to differ from him in this way, that modernization and advancement is a natural thing to the human race. So over the years, human being has reached a level where it wants everything being automatic. So you would have overhead tanks from where water would flow right to your bedroom or right to your wash basin, and that sort of comfort that human being has already accustomed to, without which it is very difficult for the people to live. At this moment, we have to try and find a way for ourselves that how to use water in a way that is sustainable for the future. In fact, we have also a statistic that says by 2030, our consumption of water would increase 50% more than the available supply. So that definitely doesn't say that you go back to the traditional method of water conservation and find another way of conserving the water. That is what my view is. About the policy, I would come later on after the answer to this question.
Sure. Jyotish, can we please hear from you?
I too accept what Mr. Sir said. We are in an age of modernization. We are in the age of where needs are to be met by one click of a button, and everybody has their own reasons to fight for their needs, and nobody can wait these days. Nobody can get back to the past. Nobody can do what our forefathers practiced. But what I would like to highlight here is that we should take the soul of the practices, like the basic ideology why those practices were taken, like rainwater harvesting or bamboo irrigation in Meghalaya. All these things, they can be taken up as an additional source. Like rainwater is highly ignored in the current urban society. There can be a proper construction system in such a way that rainwater is properly collected and supplied to the inmates of inmates of a multi-story building or an office building, where offices the need for water is also highly ignored because water policies and water municipal corporation, they have their own policies for allocating water for industrial or office buildings or any multi-story buildings. For that, to meet the need, they are going for groundwater drilling, bow welling and all that. Instead, why can't they go for a more sustainable and more traditional way of harvesting water from the rain? Something like that. Like we can take the practice of the past and bring it into a more modern way. Something like that can be brought about. And the next thing that I wanted to say was that like you said, the bamboo irrigation system in Meghalaya, there is something that is similar to that happening in Wayanad. The Adivasis of Wayanad, the forest in Wayanad, they have a technique of collecting water from bamboos. Like bamboo forest, they have I have heard it from my friend, they have a particular process by which they can use a bamboo to reach the groundwater reservoir and harvest in such a way. No industrial procedure or no mining can bring out the water from that. Only a traditional practitioner of the Adivasi technique of drilling water can actually harvest that water from spring. And it is something like, the groundwater is a big reservoir. Blasting or anything cannot help it, and it may result in a negative way. So traditional techniques should be employed in a modern scenario in such a way that we can save water, utilize it in a proper way, and reducing our needs is something that we have to try. The mindset is something we have to bring about ourselves. Like, just because we are in a hurry to drink water, we don't have the right to go drill up a hole in somebody else's land or spoil an ecosystem, something like that. So that is my thing.
Thank you very much, Jyotish. But here I just have one more question. You just mentioned that we can be implementing the traditional practices into the modern world, but would that be satisfying huge demands, like the demands of manufacturing industry? Because such traditional practices like the bamboo thing you mentioned, I'm sure that would only satisfy the demands on a smaller level. Would that be helpful for the economy, for the companies? Can you see this in a larger scale?
Well, I can answer your question with an example. For example, like you're given a bucket of water and you're asked to split it between two people. One is a farmer and another is an industrialist. There is always an option. You don't need to split it in such a way that you give more to somebody or less to somebody else or something like that. You can obviously, go for another option. Like apart from the bucket, you can give an option to the farmer. You can take the water from this mug or this little well or something. I'm just saying that instead of meeting a large demand from one source, like industrial or residential needs, you don't need to go take it from Palar, or you don't need to take the groundwater. Instead, I'm just saying that have a secondary source so that you reduce the consumption of from one source. Like industries, there is no other go. They can't harvest water, or they don't have the tolerance for that. They need to meet their demands. So they can use the primary source. But for other purposes, they can always go for the secondary source so that they don't completely use the exploit the primary source. I'm just saying have a secondary source so that we'll reduce the primary source.
Thank you very much. And that was a meticulous alternative, Jyotish. And now, Sibi ma'am, being from the place of Wayanad, I would like to hear insights from you regarding the subject.
I would like to add something to what Jyotish said now. Jyotish mentioned about the usage of traditional method to get an additional source of, or to conserve rainwater. So I have seen in many places in Kerala, even the traditional methods are used in the new building construction. So that is a good idea, that what I feel. Using this traditional method, even new building construction also, the same method is used to collect rainwater and to use it for the domestic purposes. So that can be used one area, not mainly into this commercial area, industrial area. Industrial area, of course, we have to use a large amount of water. There what we can use is minimizing the water usage, different techniques to minimizing water usage. And as we earlier discussed, then reusage of water and recycling of water. Then I would like to add one thing to what Dr. Jitendra Mohan mentioned about the awareness of students in the hostel about conserving water. That should not limit to the students. I stay in the university quarters. I have seen among faculty also, we don't have any shortage of water in the campus. So that's why, water is wasted for domestic usage, as well as even for gardens. Gardens, the hose is open for a long time, and no measures are taken to reduce the water usage. So here we don't have this problem of water. We have enough water available. We won't face the scarcity of water. So that time we have to remember about people outside, even Pondicherry, outside the campus. People they are in a queue, or they are waiting for water to come. They collect water in their pot. So that this awareness should, you have to start from even higher authority level till the students.
Yes, probably I agree what Dr. Sivijaj has just said, that not only students, in fact every one individual in the society have to have that awareness, and that how to use the water judiciously. Here I would particularly mention about this gardening, not only in the university but in all industrial sectors. Gardening, though we feel that the water irrigated to these plants go underground, but there are so many lapses, so many wastage in this process. So we understand and we all know that this agriculture sector is the largest consumer of groundwater. So and the water that is used for agriculture do not get renewed 100%. So it gets wasted in the way. So definitely we have to have a thought over what kind of gardening we need to have at academic institutions or industrial houses, and whether we are using the water to its requirement level or we are overusing it. That is what we have to make a decision. And yes, here comes the government policy and related things, that there should be some mechanism, there should be some policy to guide, to monitor, to supervise the usage of water in our daily life.
So I would like to give one more suggestion to the gardening system used now. So there are micro irrigation systems available, which we are now using in many of the agriculture sectors, that can be taken use in our campus also to minimize water use for gardening purpose.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Jyotish. There's another question about growing food and not lawns. I would like to pose this question to Venkat. Venkat, can you please share your insights on this subject?
Yes, Tarni. So when we take an example of Pondicherry University, the horticulture department grows more lawns, and the water which is used is not recycled water. So if a mechanism can be developed from the hostels or the faculty quarters or from the all other buildings, from the rainwater or the grey water can be recycled, and the recycled water can be used for the lawns or other gardening purposes. So in this way we would be able to recycle water and conserve water in a good manner. And when you said about food, I would also want to share some thoughts on our food habits. So if you take from the recent trend in the food consumption, there is a pretty much increase in the quantum of meat consumption. So if you take the meat industry as a whole, the meat industry requires more processing is required. So more wastage of water is there. And if you also go for a tanning industry, it requires much of water to process the leather. So if the whole humankind can evolve in such a way wherein vegan alternatives can be adopted. For example, to produce 1 kg of a beef, it requires much of water, like 100, example I'm saying, like 100, at least 100 liters of water is required. But in case of to grow a plant, statistics says that a cup of peas, which gives required protein plus calcium. So dairy products can also be, there is an alternative you can use.
Yeah, with respect to Sibi ma'am's and Venkat's view on gardening, I would like to suggest an idea. Like in the university, we can actually have a separate tank, rainwater tank, for gardening purposes. And in the homes, like we can use a separate tank for the kitchen sink, which can be reused for gardening purposes.
Thank you very much, Jarya. Jyotish, would you like to add on to this?
Well, I have one view that I wanted to share. There is, I think most of us are not aware, there is an artificial made pond inside the university forest, which is actually the wastewater is collected in that pond. There is a separate ecosystem there, frogs, and there are even migratory birds coming and sitting there. It's like a big tank inside the forest, and I just explored it and I found it. And that water is very well, it can be very well used for gardening purposes. It's wastewater basically from the messes. The mess water, the sink water, they just come and accumulate. And they have that they are basically organic waste. There's no inorganic waste found in that water. And you can use that water with a limited amount and pump it to one particular place for gardening. For lawns particularly, the horticulture department can enact a plan in such a way that such water can be used for lawns or gardening or any other purposes, instead of using fresh water, which is potable water, for gardening purposes. Like she said, a separate tank need not be a rainwater tank. Even like earlier what Venkat mentioned, grey water, that is the sewage water, proper treatment with limited chemicals can be used. They can be used for gardening purposes instead of going for fresh water. That will benefit both the gardening and also the university system. But it needs proper planning.
Thank you for that insight, Jyotish, and I think Venkat would like to add on to this.
Yes, Sarni. As I said, the recycle of water mechanisms, it is just the one-time investment the authorities would be making. If we are able to make this one-time investment for water treatment plant, so from next to the implementation, these can be a major tool to conserve water either in the industrial sector or the universities and in any place.
Thank you, Venkat, for that constructive suggestion. And now that we've actually mentioned about the water usage within the university, I just have one more question, and this is about the limiting the availability of water in the university. Do you think that if we can limit the water availability, we can conserve water?
I would not agree with the idea of limiting the water or timing or rationing the supply of water. That would create inconvenience in our daily life. Sometimes when I feel like going for toilet, if I have no water to use it, then it is inconvenience to me. In the same way, if I go for something and I do not have water to drink, I feel suffocated. The point lies in having proper awareness of it. If we are all aware, even if it is sufficiently available, we make judicious use of it, and that is the right way.
With respect to Dr. Mishra's views, I would like to say something on this limited availability of water. Actually, in our campus, water is free, so we just use it without any restrictions. If water becomes like petrol, we will be always in reserve mode, like we run our bikes. So I think instead of all the taps running 24/7, we can limit the number of taps. For each bathroom, we can keep only one taps which will be running 24/7, and the rest all will be timed. In that way, we can save water. And as I have mentioned before, we can actually keep a big drum which will be always filled with water which everyone can use when there will be less water available?
Well, there's a conflict of demand. Then, being in a central university and the number of students being high, and you as a student here know the number of hostel students, and you very well know how many of them go to class and how many of them don't. If you time them, it will be a big issue because some of the people have their classes at a different time. Some of the people have to go to a different campus. You can't monitor the need of a particular student. There will be always a group which needs to use water at one particular time. It is very difficult to time the availability of water. If you make one tap available at one particular time 24/7, then the problem will arise when everybody wants to use that particular time. That particular time or the 24/7 tap, there will be a greater demand for using that, and there will be a conflict of need. Like one particular student has to go to some other campus, he will be at a greater demand, but still he can't enforce it on the other group which wants to use it now. There will be a conflict of need and conflict of availability. That can become a big issue because the demand is always high in the university. The number of students, their reasons to access the water, they vary from the groups to groups. So you can't just time it or make one particular tap or one particular area 24/7 because you just don't know the need of a particular student at what time. Being water available 24/7 is a guarantee that every student enjoys.
Yeah, I think we got the point. The real problem has an ideal the problem of some scarcity of water has the ideal solution, and you would all agree with me, friends. Proper awareness, proper policy, and proper follow-up mechanism. If these three things are there, then we can probably address the problem of.
Yes, sir. I would like to emphasize on the point what Mintu said about the restriction. I think what he meant was maybe the separate tank can be maintained for drawing water from there. If you take the example in any bus stand restrooms, there will be a separate tank for all the restrooms wherein the passenger has to take a bucket and get the water and use it. So rather than restricting water from the taps.
We can now discuss probably what are the policy measures, how the follow-up mechanism can be strengthened, or how awareness can be created on water conservation.
Yes, sir, I'd completely agree with you. And now let me just switch over to the water availability in Pondicherry. Can we please talk about the sources of water for them, and is the water that is being used in Pondicherry, is it sustainable, and how is it going to affect the future?
Well, we have all heard, and there are experiences in the form of literatures available to us that says that once upon a time, maybe some 20-30 years ago, the water quality of Pondicherry was considered to be the best in the country. But of course, that is not the prevailing condition now. We have so many problems that is related to underground water quality. We have seawater incursion to the ground water table. We have companies existing in our locality which are pumping the wastages and pumping the drain waters or pumping the industrial waste, whether solid or liquid, inside the ground, so which pollutes the environment, pollutes the quality of the groundwater. So such is the condition. We need to have foolproof mechanism as a policy by government of Puducherry to strengthen the measures, to ensure the quality of water is maintained.
As a resident of Pondicherry, I was told many stories that if you just see in any street, there would be a pond available for the residents. But if you take the current situation, all the ponds are dried up, and all the water source is only from all the major tanks are from the groundwater. They dig up bore and they take water from that. So if the government can rejuvenate the ponds wherever they are, I think the water shortage in the Pondicherry can be addressed.
Well, being a current resident of Pondicherry as a student, I have a bigger doubt about the availability of water in Pondicherry University. Although we all know that there is no lack of water in the university. Being a central university campus, water and electricity is always made available. The problem, according to me, is that when such 24/7 availability of water is provided for the university, I'm sure that there will be another side of it, because we don't know where the water comes from. Students and the members of the family, university family, should be made aware of the source of the water, where it is coming from, whether it is affecting any other group of people or whether it is affecting an ecosystem. We can see the number of tanks increasing in and around Pondicherry inside the university. Such sources should be highlighted so that we can know the source of water, whether it's affecting anybody else. If it is affecting somebody else, policies should be made.
Thank you, Jyotish. Thank you, Venkat, and thank you, sir. And now I think this was a very constructive talk when it comes to the sources of Pondicherry. As far as I have heard, the sources of water for Pondicherry comes from the estuary lake, 2 rivers near Villanur. And I'm sure these rivers or the lake would not be satisfying the demand for a long period. And so water conservation awareness has to be made within the residents of Pondicherry right away. That is the need of the hour. Now, shifting ourselves to the tourism industry, the industry which we belong to. As we know, the 27th of September is being celebrated as the World Tourism Day every year. So can we just focus on the tourism industry? Now, my question here is about how is the tourism industry going to confront with the water scarcity that would come in a 25 or 40 years time? Because the population is increasing, hence the water demand will also increase. So that way, tourism has to meet the demands for its tourists. So how do we see this?
Tarini, as I mentioned earlier, accommodation industry is the industry in tourism which uses water for a large quantity. So the new concept of eco-hotels. Eco-hotels is one such good idea to minimize the usage of water or to have the good practice of minimizing water use and reuse of waters, and such types of new concepts should be introduced. And in all these hotels, tourists are made aware about the importance of water usage, and there are even awareness campaigns also to give more to make tourists aware and to
Yes, I think first we need to discuss about the problems that the tourism industry is facing. We know that tourism and accommodation industry is one of the foremost consumer of water, and water is being used for so many reasons, so many purposes. Accommodation sector, probably you see the maintenance of the swimming pool, the supply of water to the bathrooms where visitors and guests stay, probably the maintenance of the lawns as we experience in any other sector. In everything, in this washing of clothes and use of pesticides that pollute the water table. These are various usages, there are various ways how groundwater is used and polluted. Now, talking about the mechanism how we can address to the problems, we have a growing concept of this green labeling. You would have all heard green labeling or green certifications. This is a sort of policy that almost all countries, all tourist destination countries have adopted, that any unit which uses the water's most sustainable way is given a certificate. And tourists are also aware that a unit, a hotel unit which is very judicious in usage of water and recycles the water, they prefer that sort of hotel. And in fact, countries also do give some incentives and subsidies to the hotels which are called green hotels or eco-hotels or green labeled hotels. So here all stakeholders have a role to play. Tourists use the water judiciously. The hotel maintenance staff, they also make best use of the water by recycling, by irrigating the wastewater to the maintenance of the lawns. And in fact, the maintenance staff also use the water judiciously. So every stakeholder has a role to play, and that is what green labeling or green certification is called, and that is probably, as per my view, is a best solution to the problems that we are facing at present.
To add to it, as a tourist, he would always want to come to a destination and enjoy it. And if you take the case of Pondicherry, recently there was an initiative taken by the Pondicherry University and the NCC group wherein the coastal cleaning was taking place. That was due to the pollution by the major tourists, dumping their waste in the coastal areas. And more than that, tourism in the nature-based areas, the tourist will, for example, if they go in a lake, they pollute the lake, wherein they should be considering that the same lake water is shared from the host communities. So in the base, the tourist awareness or the tourist education initiative should be done so that there is a right tourist behavior in the destinations.
Venkat, the tourists as such, they may not be much aware about the sustainable practices in a destination. So there is a role of tour operator also here. So the tour operators would be suggesting the tourist the accommodations available in a destination. So these tour operators, they have their role is promoting the hotels where they have sustainable practices and guiding these tourists to book such accommodation facilities in the destination.
Well, on that note, ma'am, I would like to add something else, like which policymakers can employ. Certificates and subsidies should be given to tour operators, private or government tour operators, for being the most green tour operator or green travel agent, like promoting green practices. Certifications and subsidies should be provided to such people, because money always inspires people to develop on teams, and that way such ideas can be brought about. To something else that I wanted to add, like earlier as I said, tourism is, the needs of a traveler, it's an excess from the regular needs of a public. Needs of tourism is always excess. They always come to a destination and you have to cater to their needs. So what a destination regularly needs, that is made double or triple on arrival of or development of tourism. So what I want to say is that instead of going for conventional forms of tourism or conventional forms of constructing a hotel or going up with resorts or anything, there is always an option for secondary level policy making in such a way that homestays, rural tourism can be developed, which will also inspire the tourists to come to the destination. He can learn about the place and be a part of that destination and use the level of water that everybody else is using. With that way we can substantially minimize the use of water specifically used for tourism. Like if you take a tourist preferring to stay in a homestay, he'll also limit himself to the needs of the rural tourist or the tourist with whom he's staying, and you don't need to supply excess of water for that purpose. And another thing, like it will be a different experience for him to be a part of a homestay, and that way the whole branding of the country's tourism can also be developed, because resorts, hotels, all these things are available everywhere. What a person wants to see from a destination should be something unique. So that way tourism is also benefited and water consumption can be substantially reduced. That's what I wanted to say.
To add on to Jyoti's view, the tourists can be educated by the tour operators in order to act responsible in the destination before even they leave their home region. So in that way we can actually create a good awareness among the tourists who are traveling. And also, like, the tour operators should be given a responsibility that they should educate their tourists before even they leave the thing, so that if anything happens, if the tourist from that particular tour operator pollutes that environment, can be fined. The fine will be not to the tourist but to the tour operator. In such way, this can be made into practice.
Adding on to the point, something that I wanted to say is the relationship, the rapport between the host and the tourist should be developed in such a way that the host has a say in what the tourist does. Like if, for example, a few decades back, Japan was known as the cleanest, Tokyo was known as the cleanest city. The main reason was because law was enforced, but it was not enforced by the police or any other law enforcing agency. It was enforced by the people themselves. Tourists, when they come to Tokyo, if they litter or if they're caught littering, even if by mistake, the local public, the citizens or the host community people tell them or warn them in such a way that further doing it will resort to fining or resort to a legal action. So the rapport between the host community and the tourist should be made in such a way that the tourist knows this is what culturally we want to enforce on the destination. Like, if you want to come to our place, these are the things that you need to basically maintain. If a tourist is made aware about such developments, or if such a relation is made between the host and the tourist, water consumption, wastage can also be reduced. So and one more thing, if a host is careless about his own destination, then it will resort to a further problem. So the host and the tourist should be equally made aware, and the relationship should be made that water consumption and wastage can be reduced.
Says Jyotish, so it is a responsibility for all the stakeholders, not only for tourist or the host, from the policy makers, tourist, host, industry people. So it is a responsible effort from all the sides. So then, it is the way to minimize the pollution.
I would like to thank all of you for giving your valuable suggestions to the industry people here. And I think with this, we will conclude our discussion on the water conservation and its relativity to the tourism industry. I would like to extend my gratitude to all the students and to the professors for having made this session so very informative and for sharing all your views on this subject. And I'm sure that taking insights from your discussions, it would be easy for us to combine modernization and the traditional concepts, to take your valuable suggestions and implement them into plans. And of course, that would mark a very constructive approach towards water and its significance. So I would like to thank all of you once again, and we'll conclude with this show. Thank you all to the listeners as well.
You listened to a special group discussion on the occasion of World Tourism Day 2013. Thank you, listeners. This is Puduvai Vani 107.8 MHz, a community radio station of Pondicherry University.